one of the biggest priorities in my role is producing written content every week, so 3 blog articles a week, among other things. So if we zero down on that part of the role, that's changed dramatically from a planning perspective and from a writing perspective. From the planning perspective, my cognitive load has reduced significantly because when you write an article, you don't just sit down and start writing an article. I mean,
It's not just the writing.
It's not the right way to do it. You have to plan, you have to research, you have to understand, who is my target audience? What are their motivations? What are the questions they're asking? What are their follow-up questions? What are their objections? And ChatGPT, if you train it correctly and you give it the correct guidelines, can take away that cognitive load. So that's one aspect that has changed in my role due to that. Another aspect that's changed dramatically is the writing.
Welcome to the Inbound Buzz podcast. My name is Moby Sadiq and I am not joined by Mr. Tony Cow. Mr. Tony Cow is hopefully having a baby right about now. We're not exactly sure, but I've got a special treat for you guys. I'm joined by Mr. Luca Troisi. How are you, Luca?
I am great. Super excited for this podcast. How about you?
Awesome, man. Awesome. Now, the reason why I want to have Luca on, he is our resident content manager at Red Pandas. How long you been at Red Pandas?
Bit over a year now, actually.
It's really been a year.
Yes, but you don't remember?
We didn't do anything for your 1 year, you think?
No, you didn't. I was expecting a cake and some flowers.
I thought it's been like 9 months, but I know, that's fine. That's fine. Well, okay, fine. Obviously, he's been here for over a year, but obviously, it's a big part of the Red Pandas team. If you've ever seen any articles, if you've seen our social media stuff, Luca takes care of all of that. That's him and his team underneath him. So big part of what we do. But the reason why I was so excited to have you on is AI is a huge part of what you do.
Yeah.
We'll get back to that because I think that'll definitely be the featured area of the show today. But before we get there, let's talk about some news. What's making news today, Luca? What's our first news story?
All right, cool. So first things first, Google's introduced a new AI search function. This has already been out for a while. It appears at the top of search, but they're introducing image and video to that. So do you want to talk a little bit about that, Moby?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's funny when you shared this with me because I was trying to get my head around it. Yeah. So, people are starting to call this search generative experience, so SGE. So great, another acronym we need to know. But essentially, like when you showed it to me, I guess it's kind of like having ChatGPT top of your search, right? Like a little widget. If you guys ever saw our episode where we did on Bing, where we were playing with the Bing thing, or if you've ever played with Bing with the ChatGPT integration, it's kind of very similar to that. But what you're saying now, there's going to be images and videos as well as generative text as well.
Yeah, and I think it's just a testament to Google prioritizing content and all forms of content now, and a testament to how, like as a brand, if you want to succeed, you need to be producing content as much as possible and in many different formats.
Yes, because, and it's funny, right? I saw something in our research around the fact that they were saying like, okay, it's going to upend SEO, right? But the thing is, like, when you think about it, Luca, like more than 53% of searches on desktop and 57% of searches on mobile don't result in clicks anyway because Google gives you the answer, right? Like if you did Matildas versus Wales soccer, go the Matildas, unfortunately didn't make it through. But if you did that, you don't have to click through it. Like Google will give you that little rich snippet and you'll get the score there, right? Similarly, for one of the terms we were looking at today, like I think it was like Red Pandas. Sorry, it was like HubSpot Agency Australia. We get that rich snippet, like, or how much does HubSpot cost? It pulls it out. So this is like nothing new. Like a lot of SEO people are going to be like, oh, now you got to, but like, really, Luca, what you said is right. You got to focus on that content. The best time to do that was probably 5 years ago. The second best time is today.
Yeah, totally agree.
So you've got to focus on that content for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
What's the next part? What else we got making news today?
So ChatGPT-4. So it's actually being used to reduce the cost of human labor for content moderators, which is really interesting.
And what's content, quickly for everyone else, what's content moderation?
So content moderation typically is moderating. Like let's say there's a website with user content, user comments and stuff like that. Content moderators will go over that user content, make sure that it sticks to the guidelines and policies, whatever that is for that particular website. And that obviously takes a lot of time, energy and cognitive load, and ChatGPT is being used to reduce that, which some are arguing might be detrimental to the workforce. But I have other opinions. What are your thoughts on this? I want to hear your opinion.
The line that made me laugh in the story was, this could reduce the mental health burden on human moderators. it can also be argued it will actually reduce the human moderators.
Yeah.
And thereby resulting in more mental health issues. So
when you put it that way.
I find it quite funny. It's like, guys, just be real with us, man.
Mm.
Like, some people are going to lose their jobs and some people aren't. What's your take on this?
So it's interesting you say some people are going to lose it and some aren't. And I think that's key. I think the people that aren't going to lose their jobs are the ones that embrace the AI and they actually learn how to use it. Because when it comes down to it, AI isn't human. It's a form of intelligence that humans use to improve processes, right? So it's important to be able to use it because then once you can use it, you can then do your job quicker, faster, more efficient. And those are the people that businesses are going to want to hire.
Yeah. It's interesting. You're not going to lose your job to AI. You're going to lose your job to someone who knows how to use AI.
Exactly.
For sure. And cool, last one. This is not an AI one, but what's our last news story today?
So Google answers why a site doesn't rank well despite having good technical SEO.
Such a good one.
Yeah, this one's so interesting. So John Mueller explains why a website might not rank in Google even when it doesn't have good SEO. And there's a quote that I wanted to read out about this, which I kind of wanted your thoughts on. So he says, a good way to think about this is to compare it to the offline world. As a restaurant, does using the right ingredients and cooking in a clean kitchen mean you'll get a lot of customers? So it's the same sort of thing with technical SEO versus creating content and creating value on your website.
Yeah, so John Mueller, by the way, he is, for anyone who knows, he's part of Google. He's one of the head SEO guys there. And even he says, right, there are shortcomings of Google's own advice on SEO.
Yeah.
Because their advice is like, do everything technical, make everything fast. And the other thing too, the other people who have to blame for this, Luca, is everyone who does SEO courses, right? Like, SEMrush, which I love SEMrush, by the way, but SEMrush has an SEO course. Even HubSpot too. Like, I love HubSpot, but they're part of the problem as well. But when you think about it, when they're creating a course, they need to do something that's easy and tried and tested. So they're like, do H1s, put the meta descriptions, make sure the keyword is used here. So it's always very basic advice because I think they really struggle to go beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
But I love, like, one thing I like about John Mueller, even though he works for Google, he's like this old guy now. He's been there for years. Like, he should have grandkids. I don't know why he's still there. He hasn't retired yet.
Mm-hmm.
But he kind of just tells it how it is.
Yeah.
He's like, our own advice isn't that great. And even he says that, like, he talks a little, he only really touches on it, but the site promotion is really important. Like, you've got to do content, you've got to build a brand, you've got to promote stuff, you've got to do all of that. The last thing I'll say on this, which I really liked, he said that said, if a site can't rank well for low competition keywords, that may be a sign that maybe there's still a little more to learn about SEO. There's a bit more you can do there, which is a good point. So how much should you do it? It's a really good litmus test, I guess. If there's a really low competition keyword, and you can figure that out from free tools on Google AdWords or Google Ads or SEMrush, it's low competition, low volume, and you still can't rank for it, then you probably have bigger issues, technical issues at bay. Yeah. But you and I talk about this because our industry is one of my biggest bugbears is SEO agencies are still ripping people off with technical SEO.
Yeah. I think it's a lot about content now. Like, even looking at what we're doing with Red Pandas, like producing 3 articles a week consistently every single week, we're seeing the traffic climb significantly every single month. And that's not from, delving into and focusing on technical SEO. Like you said, yes, you have to do it to a certain extent to get it to a certain point, but then it's just about content production. And there are SEO agencies taking advantage of that gap in knowledge simply because Google doesn't acknowledge that, which kind of sucks, to be honest.
Oh, it's 100%. It's the people taking advantage of that. Now, I will say one thing, right? Like, we had a client come to us and they're like, oh, we want, we have an agency doing SEO. We want you guys to do it now. And what I said to them was like, guys, you don't need to do this type of SEO. Like, is there any content involved? Is there any videos? Is there anything else involved? User experience? They're like, oh, look, it's just SEO. And I had to educate them, right? Because you're right, people are taking advantage on, guys, you don't need to pay someone technical SEO every single month. What I did say to them though, like, just credit where it's due. I said, look, let us do an audit, pay us for the audit. We'll tell you all the items in the audit, execute on that audit. And then maybe a year from now, again, you do another audit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you need to do anything, then cross that bridge when it gets there. But don't be ripped off by someone. Honestly, the takeaway here is if you don't understand what they're doing and they can't explain it to you in a way that you can understand or a 15-year-old can, then you're getting ripped off.
For sure. And if you have a limited amount of resources, you want to put that towards content over those optimization points, So
100%.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Let's move on. I'm really excited about this. Our featured buzz, and the reason why you're here today, Luca, is using content, using AI in the content generation creation process, right?
I'm so excited for this.
Last night we caught up last night, Luca and I. And I'm like, oh, cool. Let's go over our stuff in half an hour. And Luca just started, and I was like mind blown. Like hour and a half later, I'm like, oh my God, this stuff is amazing. So if you guys are listening on a podcast, wherever you guys listen, great. You'll get the gist of this. But if you want to see, so Luca will be sharing his screen. If you guys want to see what he's doing and the prompts and whatnot, then definitely check out redpandas.com.au/EP144. And you can see the video version of this. You can see what Luca looks like as well. But also in the show notes, we'll share any references or any kind of tips and tricks we can share as well. But okay, cool. My first question for you, Luca, is now obviously you've been at Red Pandas for a year, apparently, more over a year, right? And AI's been around, but in terms of the mainstream, I guess, understanding or buzz really happened in January when ChatGPT came out. So my question for you is like, you've been here pre and post that transition,
right?
How has your role shifted as a content producer, content manager before ChatGPT and after ChatGPT?
Yeah, I think there's really two ways that has changed. So just for the audience, one of the biggest priorities in my role is producing written content every week. So 3 blog articles a week, among other things. So if we zero down on that part of the role, that's changed dramatically from a planning perspective and from a writing perspective. So from the planning perspective, my cognitive load has reduced significantly because when you write an article, you don't just sit down and start writing an article.
It's not just the writing. Yeah.
It's not the right way to do it. You have to plan, you have to research, you have to understand, who is my target audience? What are their motivations? What are the questions they're asking? What are their follow-up questions? What are their objections? And when you actually, approach an article in that way, you have a better outcome when you write
100%.
it. So with
100%.
ChatGPT,
and on that, Luca, sorry to interrupt you. That's the point where, and I try to stress this a lot with people I speak to, between just writing an article and writing a they ask you answer article.
Totally different.
That's why you need and not necessarily from us, just get the training, get some courses online if you can find it on Impact Plus. But that's why you need a coach, because there's a difference between just writing, and I'm just going to write with keywords, to what you said, their motivations, their drivers, like all that stuff. But it takes time. But the point is, now you're saying that time can be heavily reduced, if not removed.
Yeah. And it's time and cognitive load because, planning those things takes mental effort. You have to really think strategically about who you're targeting. And ChatGPT, if you train it correctly and you give it the correct guidelines, can take away that cognitive load. So that's one aspect that has changed in my role due to that. Another aspect that's changed dramatically is the writing aspect, which is really
awesome. Yeah, so let's talk about that. So you got that planning aspect, and then you got the writing aspect. Talk to us about how that works. And I think this is probably a really good point for you to share some examples as well.
Yeah, so I'm going to share an example of how to create an introduction with ChatGPT. So what I've discovered is that the more guidelines you give ChatGPT to a certain extent, the better output you're going to receive. So what I've done here, I've created 2 examples. I've done an example without a guideline, just asking it to create an introduction on a topic that it would know about.
Yeah, so what's that? Read that example out.
So the prompt I gave was, can you write an introduction for the blog article titled, "What is the local SEO?" Now, the reason I chose local SEO is because there's lots of articles already on that on Google. ChatGPT would know about it. Now, it gave me, this is without any guidelines, it gave me an introduction. And if you read this, if you're watching the video and you can read this introduction, you can see that it's not bad. It's good.
That's not great. It's something to write home about.
Yeah, it's not the best thing in the world. Like, it's okay, right? And the reason it's not great, or the best thing, is because it doesn't write from the perspective of, those customer pain points and those objections and those questions they're asking. So what I've done in the second example is I've created a guideline. So what I've done is I've taught ChatGPT how to create a content plan, and that content plan includes things.
I love this. Yeah. So this is like scratching the surface, but read out that sentence on how you trained it. Just that first sentence for people listening.
I would like to teach you how to create a content plan that considers the target audience. And this second sentence is really important because otherwise it's going to spit out too much info. After reading through all of the above, simply acknowledge that you understand, and then I will give you the task to create a plan for me next.
So just pause there. So I love this, right? Because sometimes you will just try to give instruction. They'll start answering. You're like,
Yeah.
look, I'm just going to give you information. Hold 5.
Yeah.
Don't give me an answer yet. Just acknowledge. Just acknowledge that you've received this, you understand it, and then create a plan for me, right?
Yeah, it's like ChatGPT, wait.
Hold off, boy. So yeah, and then you've got, and we won't read out all of them, but then you've got a plan for the following blog articles. Just read out the first one there. Yeah.
So a plan answers. So then I explain what a plan is. So a plan answers for any blog article the following questions: who's the target audience, what the motivations are, what the initial questions are, etc. And the other questions are just related to the target audience.
And then it just says, yep, I understood. And it summarizes what you've given it. And it's like, then it says, please provide details for the topic you want me to create a content plan for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you get it. You ask it to create a content plan. So that could be as simple as saying, could you create a content plan as per the above guidelines for the blog article titled, What is Local SEO?
Yeah.
Then it's going to produce a content plan answering those questions. So it's going to, give you the target audience, the questions, the motivations, and
I love this.
the
Like
table
some
of
of these,
contents.
let's slow some of this down. You got what they're looking for, motivations, audience, initial questions, objections. Yeah, like isn't general SEO enough to answer my business? Like it's funny. What I love about this example, Luca, you didn't just say that you this is the areas of the plan that I want, and then give it the areas. It gave it to you.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, all right, ChatGPT, this is what a content plan is. Can you acknowledge? Yeah, I get it. Awesome. All right, now give me a content plan based on those factors for this topic. And then it's like, okay, here you go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing.
So it's like it knows it already, but it didn't bother because you weren't specific.
Yeah. And that's actually interesting you say that, because I find the more specific I am with ChatGPT, the better outcome I get in most scenarios, not in all.
Yeah.
And that's something you have to keep in mind when you're writing or developing prompts.
Cool. All right, cool. So then it gave you a plan, and then we're still not writing the article yet. It's just giving you a plan.
Exactly. So there's a few extra steps here, but it's worth it. So it gives you a table of contents as well. Then this is the smart part. So now what you say, I'm going to keep this paragraph short. So basically, essentially what you tell ChatGPT now is, okay, we are writing a blog article titled, What is Local SEO? Below, I'm going to provide you information on the target audience and the table of contents, etc. Can you use the information to write the article? Make sure to follow the content plan below. And then the most important thing you have to say, or it's going to stuff it up, is I want you to write each part step by step. Start with the introduction, then we'll review and move on to the next step.
Yeah. Okay, good. So this was an epiphany for me too. You didn't say, go write the article now. You said, just give me the introduction and stop at that.
Yeah. So I don't have an example for this, but just to explain it, if you if you ask it to write it all in one go, it's going to give you less detail and less information. When you ask it to write step by step, the output is better. And I don't know why. I don't know if that's because, ChatGPT has a character limit. I don't know if there's another reason for it, but I've discovered that.
Yeah, these are just hacks. This space is so new. Like these hacks that you're sharing are really important. Because people are not going to think about this stuff. Cool. All right. So let's fast forward and then.
So the last important point is after you ask it to write the introduction, you basically, the information it gave you on the content plan, you basically copy and paste that. And that's the information it works with to then produce your introduction. And then if you look at that introduction, it really
much better.
It talks to the customer. It sounds real. And I would still have to go and edit this to get it to the standard we want, but this is a great introduction compared to what we had before. It takes the cognitive load off me. It gives me a place to start working from as opposed to coming in from scratch. And that's really the key here.
Yeah, amazing. It means you can get more done. And that's how, it's so funny. I talk to a lot of clients about the right content manager to hire and what you can expect out of them. And that's how you get your 3 articles done. You do stuff on it's the only way. It's the only way, right? You get stuff on the website done. You're writing scripts for videos, and also you're working with, someone else to create the captions and stuff. Like you're overseeing the whole thing.
Yeah.
So not to blow smoke up Luca's ass, but a good content manager should be able to write those articles, send newsletters, create content captions, write pages for the website, write scripts even, because they're working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. And if I didn't have ChatGPT, the stress and the cognitive load, I feel like my output would be worse, just
Yeah.
because there's more mental effort there, you know?
It's just too hard otherwise. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. All right, awesome. Now we talk a lot about they ask you answer. We talk a lot about the big five at Red Pandas. Obviously, the big five is one of the key components of they ask you answer, which is the framework and methodology that we use. And essentially, they ask you answer is addressing all the concerns that buyers have, fears, concerns, questions, to be the most trusted voice in your space, right? That's, we've got a lot of stuff on that on our website. You guys can check it out. But the big five are five, for people who don't know, are 5 areas that we all look for when we are ready to pull out our wallets, when we're ready to make a buying decision. And they are, okay, listen. Do you know them? Do you know them?
Yeah,
Say them real quick.
All right, ready? Cost and pricing, comparisons, problems, reviews, and best of list. Let's go. I got that right.
My brain's half dead, so I'm glad that
Okay,
it was like test / you say it. Yeah.
I was like, am I going to get that?
If you call all of that, they're the big 5 areas that they're the 5 areas that people look for. Now, anyway, cool. That preamble aside, it's a big part of what we do and train clients on and coach them on. Talk to us how you mesh AI, ChatGPT, and the big 5. Like, how could you create content for, what's your approach? And this is a great one if you guys are watching. If you're not, definitely check out the video. How could you create content or a plan for the big 5?
Yeah, so I'm going to show an example for this. And just before that, I want to say, when you look at producing content for your website, it's a lot of work. Something like this can help you come up with over 100 article ideas for the entire year within minutes. So let's look at an example that can do that.
You start with the training again, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So there's guidelines again. So you first ask ChatGPT, do you know what big 5 content is, or shall I educate you so that you can answer my questions?
And by the way, if you don't put that, because I have put that, if you're like, give me big 5 content for whatever, it will just, it's like an idiot that doesn't know it's an idiot sometimes.
Yeah.
It'll be like, yeah, sure. And it'll give you random 5 art, like nothing to do with big 5.
Yeah.
So you're right. You got to train it. Do you know what it is? It's going to say no. And then you tell it. Yeah.
And I think that's only applicable for things that, there isn't a lot of information on the internet about. So if you were to ask ChatGPT to write you copy for Facebook and Instagram ads, you'd probably need less guidelines because there's already information on like direct response and all these other things, right? So anyhow, it basically acknowledges that and says, yep, teach me if you want to.
Teach me what it is.
Yep.
And then you tell it what it is.
And then you provide it with that information.
So this one, for people listening, it's like Lucas saying, okay, this is what a cost price article is. It's a cost thing. This is a verse article. This is what a best article, and it's a short sentence.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, that's awesome. So now you've trained it.
Yeah. Then it basically regurgitates that information back to me in a summary to show me that it understands or what it understood.
Which I love. Yeah. It summarizes it.
I like that too because, in the past I have noticed sometimes, and it's important to read what it regurgitates because sometimes it gets it wrong and you have to say, hang on, like this is what I meant by that part. So that's important to read as well, just a quick hack. And then it's the real prompt, right? Then you ask it, okay, great. My goal is to produce. So I always start with the objective so it knows what I'm doing. So my goal is to produce 156 pieces of content for articles on my website. The content IDs have to be following the big 5 framework. And then I give it the categories that I'm producing content around. So for this example, I said paid media, PPC ads, and SEO are the 3 categories.
For your business, it could be the main categories of your business.
Yeah, it could be like dog training if you're selling dog products, like whatever
solar
it is.
panels, solar batteries, whatever it is.
Exactly, yeah. Then I ask it.
And why 156, by the way?
So I can't remember exactly why I came up with this, but I was trying to calculate how many articles would you need in a year to produce 3
per
week. But then I think I got the number wrong.
Oh, okay. So whatever number.
Oh, wait, no. I didn't get the number wrong. Yeah, I got it right. 156 is 3 per week. That's why.
Got you. Okay, got you. All right, cool. Awesome. I'll just get curious. Cool. Yeah.
So then you basically ask it to produce 52 blog articles for each of those categories that you have on your website. And then you say, for each of those categories, produce an equal amount of ideas for each of the big 5 topics.
Right.
So then what it's going to do is, rather than just giving you random ideas for each of those 3 categories, it's going to break it up. So it's going to say, all right, for paid media advertisements, I'm going to give you 5 cost or pricing article ideas. I'm going to give you 5 review article ideas and so on. And just a quick disclaimer, this was too messy for me because I like to be organized.
Right.
So I basically gave it a few prompts at the end to turn it into a table just to get my final output, which looked like this.
Yeah, so your final output is 2 columns. So go back 2 columns. 1 column says topic. 1 column said article ideas. So for example, topic was cost or pricing. Then it's got like 5 articles for cost or pricing.
And that's just for paid media. This whole table is
just
for paid
that
media.
category. Okay,
Yeah.
beautiful. Good point, Luca. So you got paid media, then you got cost pricing. Here are 5 articles.
Comparisons, 5, and so on.
And then the same thing for other categories as well.
Then it goes into PPC, same exact thing, and then SEO, same exact thing. Now, it didn't actually give me 156 pieces of content here; it gave me 75, but that's still 75 more than I had before.
Yeah, it's funny. It does that sometimes.
Yeah,
and
it's annoying.
It's like it does some things that are great. It's like, oh, you told me this, and here's a summary. But then there's like a little annoying things, like it'll give you 75 or whatever.
Yeah,
and it doesn't. This is just us being humans, right? Doesn't say, oh, sorry about that. I couldn't get 156 because of.
It doesn't give you a reason.
Yeah, you just got to put up with it.
Just accept it. But to be fair, if I wanted to continue this conversation and I actually wanted 156, I would then go ask it, hey, you missed 75 pieces or whatever it is. Can you go produce that?
Well, the analogy I've heard you and Linda in the content team talk about is, you got to treat it as an intern. Right?
yeah.
Like you got to treat it as an intern. So like interns make mistakes. They're kind of dumb, but like if you tell them exactly what to do, they'll get it.
Yeah, I kind of see it like a human, right? It's intelligence, but you can't just expect the intelligence to know what to do without you being intelligent enough to give it the right prompt, you know?
Yeah. Cool.
All
right. And obviously cool. It goes without saying, like those tips can be used together. You've got those articles. Then you could use Luca's tips from the first part when he was talking about content creation and create the intro for them, which I love. Obviously that we got limited time today, but that's just like a taste of what you can do there. I guess my final question is around like guidelines, right? Because you speak a lot about guidelines. You got to develop a guideline and say, okay, here you go, ChatGPT. Here's a guideline. Do you acknowledge? Great. Now go ahead and do something for me.
Right.
So what if you're starting without a guidelines? Like, what's your advice to develop guidelines?
So that is really interesting. So you have to reverse engineer ChatGPT in order to develop the guidelines. So that what that means is you get ChatGPT to and this sounds weird, but you get ChatGPT to teach you how to do something, right? So we'll look at an example of this, but just to give a quick summary, let's say you wanted to run ads, you wanted to write copy for ads. You would ask ChatGPT to teach you how to do that. What it gives you, that output, becomes
like,
the
help
prompt.
me help you.
Yeah. And then that output it gives you is then the prompt you're giving it next time you want to teach it how to do ads, because then it's following something, you know? So let's look at an example. So
this is a reverse engineering example, like or developing guide. What is it? Is it developing guideline?
So this is how to develop a guideline via reverse engineering.
Okay, cool.
And it's actually simpler than it sounds. Reverse engineering is just a big fancy word, you know? So let's say our goal is to create copy for Facebook and Instagram ads. And I don't know where to start. I don't have any guidelines. So I would ask ChatGPT, how do you create high converting copy for Facebook and Instagram ads? Can you teach me? It's going to then teach me a bunch of stuff, right? Now, I then know that it's missing some things. I want it to, give some information on the different types of copywriting I can use, like direct response and so on. So I then say, are there different types or methods or modes of copywriting that I can use? And then it gives me that information. Now, all that information it gave me, I'm going to pop it into a Word doc. I'm going to format it how I want. I'm going to edit the information, and that becomes my prompt. And then at the top of that, I'm going to write, hey, ChatGPT, I want to teach you how to create copy for Facebook and Instagram ads. Can you read these guidelines and then acknowledge you've understood? And then we'll continue.
Yeah.
And then all this info. And then that's your prompt. So just by doing that, we've reverse engineered ChatGPT. We've gotten it to teach us how to create a prompt for it for the next time we jump on.
Which is a really good point. Like ChatGPT is designed to be so simple, but the problem with its simplicity, it never trains you unless you tell it. So what you're saying, it's like, okay, can you teach me how I can brief you essentially?
Exactly.
Here you go, Luca. Here's what you got to give me. And then what you said, so this is my brain processing it, right? Then what you said is like, okay, cool. Also, make sure you include this in the brief. So also, and then next time you create it, you give it the prompt and you give it what you know. And okay.
Yeah, and it's not like, so you might be thinking, okay, well, if ChatGPT is giving you that information, why do you have to then give that to ChatGPT next time? Because it already knows it, right? The thing is, ChatGPT is pulling information from all over the web. So when you ask it to do something general like, write copy for me for Facebook and Instagram ads, who knows what sort of techniques and guidelines it's going to follow. Yeah. So you have to be specific with it. So even though you're getting that information from ChatGPT, you can then edit that and turn it into something that suits you. And then that gives it the specifics it needs to actually produce something that that's consistent and that you want, right?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Any passing thoughts on this one? I know we're almost out of time.
There's a tiny bit more.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm really excited for this bit. So what you then do is so you've got your prompt now, your starting prompt, that's the guideline. But then what you have to do is you have to find out from ChatGPT what information it needs from you when developing the copy, right? So rather than you assuming, oh, this is what it needs, I'm going to give it, you ask it, what else would you need if I would want you to do copy for me for Facebook and Instagram ads? So you literally ask it that, right? And then it gives you a list of all the things it needs. So what your workflow would then look like, so we've developed guidelines here. So what your workflow would then look like if you were starting with ChatGPT is you would give it those initial guidelines, like I mentioned. Then it would say, okay, yep, I've acknowledged, I'm ready, what's next? And then you would give it all this information specific to your ad.
This is the brief. Yeah, the first part is like, okay, maybe I confused the two areas. The first part is the prompt.
Yeah.
Right? And you in the previous, earlier you were saying, it teaches you what the prompt is. So you saved that already. First part, here's a prompt, I want Facebook ads. And next part, it's acknowledge it. Awesome. Next part is the brief.
Correct.
And it gave you the brief. It told you what to fill out.
Yeah, exactly.
What's your objective? Who's your audience? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly how you develop. So we've started right now from scratch, and now we've got 2 prompts to get started for creating some really great copy for Facebook and Instagram ads.
That's amazing. Amazing. Man, that is so cool. Literally, like, the stuff Lucas showed me yesterday blew my mind. But guys, if you love that stuff, and I'm sure if you're not, then I don't know. I don't know how you can ever love AI. But guys, this is not the only place. We are running our They Ask You Answer conference on October 31st in Sydney Olympic Park. If you're in Australia or APAC region, buy tickets because there is literally, Luca's boss actually, Linda, there's literally a whole segment on prompts.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot more of this there, which is going to be amazing. And by the way, because I know we have international listeners, because when I went to Chicago, I met a bunch of lovely listeners of ours. If you can't make it, guys, like I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you guys can't make it, just email me. Email me moby@redpandas.com.au. Say I can't make. If you're in Australia, I'm gonna get you to come. Like unless someone's getting married, or whatever, right? But if you're like, I can't make it, but I'd love to get a recording of that. Email me, and I promise you, once the show's over, I'll get you guys a recording as well.
Guys, you don't want to miss out on this.
Amazing. Luca, thank you so much. And we'll join you again for another episode of Inbound Buzz.
See ya, guys.
Thanks for listening to Inbound Buzz. Learn anything? Return the favor by spreading the word. Want to make your mark in digital? Need help with your digital strategy, inbound, and marketing automation efforts? Then visit redpandas.com.au and be sure to tune in next time for another Inbound Buzz hit.